Welcome to Koreatown, Manhattan, in New York City.
We're conveniently located on 32nd and 5th, and all the way down to some parts of 32nd and 6th.
First, let's explain to you a little bit about how New York City streets work.
Manhattan streets are like a grid. Some streets go up and down, like say 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, and other streets go left and right, like 34th, 35th, and 36th, so on.
Other streets have names like Broadway and Park Avenue. This makes everything easy to locate.
So, let's move on to a little bit of history.
How did K-Town come to be?
Koreatown wasn't actually always Koreatown. There were never really any formal plans to develop a Korean enclave. It was originally just another couple of streets in Manhattan, no big deal. In the 1980s, everything started with a couple of Korean bookstores and restaurants opening in the streets.
People figured out that this was a convenient place for Korean people to settle, and thus began Koreatown, NYC. Since its opening, population in K-Town have almost doubled in size since the 2000s.
For your better understanding, here's a little map of Koreatown in
New York. There are quite a few restaurants in K-Town, as you can see in the map. To be exact, there are 19. Some are not shown on the map though. There's still a shopping mall and a supermarket that will surely keep you busy during your stay in K-Town. For the cultural enclave that we want to compare with, we decided that a good fit would be Chinatown in Melbourne, Australia.
Chinatown in Melbourne, Australia was first established in the 1850s during the Victorian Gold Rush. It's also known for being the longest continuous Chinese settlement in the Western world.
Melbourne's Chinatown had a major role in locating Chinese immigrants in Australia. Chinatown is home to many Chinese restaurants and cuisines. It was established when Chinese prospectors went to Australia for the gold rush. Lodging houses were made for the Chinese community in search of gold.
The concept of both of these towns are very similar, but were founded quite differently. New York City's Koreatown is way more popular than Melbourne's Chinatown.
This is because America and its neighboring country have a far larger population than Australia does.
And since it's closer to them, it's generally more convenient than a 20-hour flight.
New York generally needs tourism. That's what the whole city is built around.
For only its residents, that's an awful lot of space.
Fortunately, there are a plethora of tourists in New York City at all times.
New York City doesn't actually need more people, but they need to keep up with their amount of visitors.
Their residents mostly consist of people in their mid to late 20s, most likely meaning they're there for school education.
Since New York City does have so many enclaves, this is the perfect opportunity to immerse yourself into different cultures and get to know people of many different backgrounds. Not to mention, there's a lot of good food.
Due to this, it's hella busy. But on the bright side, that means better access to public transit, more shopping, and more safety.
Now moving on to the population pyramids. United States population pyramid is basically the same as Australia's. Both countries have pretty balanced age groups.
Not many age groups are outliers, except for maybe the mid-20s and mid-30s. The only difference is the population, whereas the United States has around 331 million people and Australia has about 25 million people.
Australia is almost the same size as America, but the population of the United States has more than 300 million people. There should be a lot more people living on Australia because it's so much bigger, not to mention it's a continent.
The streets are very walkable in Koreatown. Although there are a lot of people living there, it is still very spacious and livable. More people living in Koreatown will also help immigrants feel welcome in New York City. It will break down language barriers and new immigrants will meet the residents of K-Town that share common interests.
Now, let's compare our two enclaves together.
The average population density of America is approximately 92.6 people per square kilometer. In Australia, the average population density is 3.3 people per square kilometer.
Since the population density is so much higher in America, towns and cities are affected by that, and that includes Koreatown. Koreatown has much higher economic growth than Chinatown because there are more people living there and working.
Because the population density of America is very high, that means that Koreatown is very busy and full of activity. But because of that, if you ever need directions to help you get somewhere whenever you visit, you will most likely have a handful of possible volunteers to help you on your way.
Aside from that, Koreatown is a vibrant town with many friendly folks, and if you ever visit the Enclave, there will be so many options for shopping, eating, and living in.